My delusional ex-wife can't understand why she is still single. She keeps telling her friends I broke up with her for no reason. What she doesn't know is that I have all her cheating videos and I have shared them with her friends. I made her feel the pain of revenge from me. Hello. Thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout-out in our next story. Today's special shout-out goes to Debbie Carlson from Hull, UK. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. The bar smelled like stale beer and regret, the kind of place where people came to drown their problems but ended up swimming in them instead. I sat at the counter, nursing a half-empty glass of whiskey, the ice cubes clinking like tiny accusations every time I tilted it. Jamie sat across from me, his brow furrowed, his beer untouched. He'd been listening to me vent for the past hour, but I could tell he was getting tired of it. Tired of me, maybe. She's still telling people I left her for no reason, I said, my voice low but sharp, cutting through the hum of the jukebox in the corner. No reason, Jamie. Like I just woke up one day and decided to torch our marriage for fun. Jamie sighed, running a hand through his hair. Alex, you've got to let it go. She's not worth it. You're divorced. It's over. Over. I laughed, but it came out bitter, like something stuck in my throat. It's not over when she's out there, spinning her sob story to anyone who'll listen. Sarah called me yesterday, asking if I was okay, like I'm the one who needs pity. She said Lydia's been crying at dinner parties, saying I abandoned her. Abandoned her, Jamie. After everything she did. Jamie leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. Look, I get it. She's a liar. She cheated. But you can't keep letting her live rent-free in your head. Move on. Date someone new. Hell, take up a hobby. Anything but this. I stared at him, the whiskey burning in my chest. He didn't get it. How could he? He hadn't seen the videos. He hadn't felt the gut punch of betrayal, the way it hollowed you out until all you had left was anger and shame. I remembered the day I found them, clear as a photograph. I'd been looking for a file on Lydia's phone, something work-related, innocent. But there they were, buried in her cloud storage, videos she hadn't even bothered to delete. Her with some guy I didn't know, laughing, touching, doing things that made my stomach churn. I confronted her that night, my voice shaking, my hands clenched so tight my nails left marks in my palms. You're overreacting, she'd said, her tone calm, almost bored. It was a mistake, Alex. You're making it into something it's not. A mistake. Like forgetting to pay the electric bill or leaving the stove on. Not screwing someone else while I was at work, trying to build a life for us. I'd filed for divorce the next week, but she'd fought me every step of the way, dragging it out, playing the victim. And now, months later, she was still at it, rewriting history to make me the villain. I can't let it go, I said, slamming my glass down harder than I meant to. The bartender glanced over, but I didn't care. She's out there, lying to our friends, and they're buying it. Sarah and Mark, they think I'm the bad guy. I'm tired of it, Jamie. Tired of her lies. Jamie leaned back, crossing his arms. So what are you going to do? Confront her again? She'll just twist it, make you look worse. You know how she is. I didn't answer right away. My mind was racing, replaying Sarah's call, the pity in her voice. I thought about Lydia at that dinner party, her eyes wet with fake tears, her voice trembling as she told them I'd left her without explanation. I imagined Sarah and Mark nodding, offering hugs, whispering about what a jerk I must be. It made my skin crawl. I'm not confronting her, I said finally, my voice quieter now, but colder. I'm done talking to her. But they need to know the truth. Sarah and Mark, they deserve to know. Jamie's eyes narrowed. What are you saying, Alex? I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The videos were still there, saved in a locked folder. I'd kept them, not out of spite, but as proof. Proof of what she'd done, proof that I wasn't crazy. I'm saying I'm tired of her lies. And I'm done letting her win. Alex, don't, Jamie said, his voice sharp now. You're playing with fire. Those videos, they're private. You share them, and you're crossing a line. They're not private, I snapped. They were on our shared account. I didn't hack into anything. And I'm not posting them online. I'm just showing Sarah and Mark. They need to know who she really is. Jamie shook his head, but I was already typing. My fingers moved fast, attaching the files, Writing the message. I'm tired of her lies. You deserve to know the truth. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The sound of the message swooping out like a gunshot in the quiet bar. Jamie stared at me, his expression unreadable. You're gonna regret this, he said softly. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Sarah, then Mark, both typing. I didn't open the messages. I didn't need to. I could picture their faces, the shock, the disgust. I'd done it. I'd ripped the mask off Lydia's lies. But as I sat there, the whiskey sour in my mouth, I felt something else, too. A flicker of doubt, sharp and cold, like a splinter under my skin. What had I just set in motion? The morning after I sent the videos, my apartment felt too quiet, like the silence was holding its breath. The coffee maker gurgled on the counter, its rhythm steady but too loud, like it was trying to fill the void. I hadn't slept much. My phone had buzzed all night. Sarah, Mark, even Jamie, their messages piling up like storm clouds. I hadn't opened them. I wasn't ready. I poured the coffee, the steam curling up, warm against my face, but it didn't settle the knot in my chest. What had I done? Jamie's words from the bar echoed in my head. You're playing with fire. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd gone too far. But then I remembered Lydia's voice, smooth and pitiful, telling Sarah and Mark I'd abandoned her. I remembered the pity in Sarah's voice on the phone, the way it made me feel small, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. No, they needed to know. They deserved the truth. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against the counter like an angry wasp. I glanced at the screen, Mark this time. We need to talk. Now. My stomach twisted, but I didn't reply. I needed time. Time to figure out what came next. I didn't have to wait long to find out. Around noon, I heard it through the grapevine. Sarah had called Jamie, frantic, saying she and Mark had confronted Lydia. I could picture it, clear as day. Sarah's sharp voice, Mark's quiet intensity, Lydia's wide-eyed denial. Jamie told me later that Lydia had tried to spin it, claiming the videos were fake, edited, some desperate lie to save face. But Sarah and Mark weren't buying it. They'd seen the truth, raw and undeniable, and they'd walked out, leaving Lydia alone with her excuses. I should have felt satisfied. Vindication, maybe. But I didn't. Instead, I felt hollow, like I'd won a game I didn't want to play. I kept imagining Lydia's face, the shock, the panic, as her carefully crafted mask crumbled. I hated her for what she'd done, but part of me, some stupid, stubborn part, still remembered the woman I'd married. The woman who'd laughed at my terrible jokes, who danced with me in the kitchen on rainy nights. That woman was gone, buried under layers of lies, but the memory lingered, sharp and painful, like a splinter I couldn't pull out. By evening, the fallout had spread. Lydia's social media posts started popping up, cryptic and dramatic, the kind of thing she thought made her look deep but just made her sound desperate. Betrayal cuts deep, she wrote, but I'll rise above. Toxic exes can't break me. I laughed when I saw it, but it was a bitter sound, echoing in the empty apartment. Toxic exes. That's what she was calling me now. The comments were a mix, some people offering sympathy, others asking questions she didn't answer. I could tell it wasn't going the way she'd hoped. People were doubting her, picking at the cracks in her story. Jamie came over that night, his knock loud and insistent. I let him in, and he didn't waste time. You started a war, Alex, he said, dropping onto the couch, his voice heavy. Sarah and Mark, they're done with her. But it's not just them. Everyone's talking. The whole friend group's splitting down the middle. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, trying to ignore the guilt gnawing at me. They needed to know, Jamie. She can't keep lying like that. Maybe, he said, his eyes narrowing. But you didn't just tell the truth. You dropped a bomb. And now everyone's caught in the blast. I didn't answer. He wasn't wrong. I'd seen the text from mutual friends, some siding with me, others saying I'd gone too far, that sharing the videos was cruel, invasive. I wanted to scream at them, tell them they didn't know what it was like, watching her rewrite our marriage like it was some tragic love story. But I didn't. I just sat there, the silence stretching between us, thick and heavy. The next day, it got worse. I was at the grocery store, pushing my cart down the aisle, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered, thinking it might be work. Instead, it was a voice I didn't recognize, sharp and professional. Mr. Carter, this is Mr. Daniels, representing Lydia Carter. I'm calling to inform you that my client is pursuing legal action against you for invasion of privacy and defamation. You'll be receiving a cease and desist letter shortly. I suggest you retain counsel." The words hit me like a punch, my grip tightening on the phone. "What?" I managed, my voice hoarse. "You heard me," he said, his tone clipped. "You've crossed a line, Mr. Carter. My client has suffered significant emotional and reputational damage. We'll see you in court." He hung up before I could respond, leaving me standing there, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the cart's wheels squeaking against the floor. A lawsuit. Lydia was suing me. I should have laughed. It was ridiculous, a desperate move. The videos were from our shared account, legally obtained, and I hadn't posted them publicly. Her case was dead in the water. But the fear was there, sharp and cold, like a blade against my throat. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring past, my mind racing. Jamie's warning echoed again. "You're playing with fire." Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd lit the match, and now the flames were coming for me. The cease and desist letter arrived the next morning. A thin envelope slipped under my apartment door, its weight heavier than it should have been. I picked it up, the paper cool and crisp against my fingers, and stared at the return address: Daniels and Associates, attorneys at law. My stomach churned, the coffee I'd made earlier turning sour in my throat. I tore it open, the sound sharp in the quiet room, and scanned the words: invasion of privacy, defamation, emotional distress. Legalese, cold and formal, but each sentence felt like a jab, a reminder of the mess I'd stepped into. I tossed the letter onto the counter, pacing the kitchen, the floorboards creaking under my weight. This was ridiculous. Lydia didn't have a case. The videos were from our shared cloud account. I hadn't hacked anything, hadn't broken any laws. And I hadn't posted them online, just sent them to Sarah and Mark. But the fear was there, gnawing at me like a rat chewing through wires. What if I was wrong? What if she twisted this, made me look like the villain again? I called Jamie, my voice tight, the words spilling out before he could even say hello. She sent me a cease and desist. Her lawyers threatening to sue. Can you believe this? After everything she did, she's suing me. Jamie sighed, the sound heavy through the phone. "I told you, Alex. You're playing with fire. You knew she'd fight back." "I didn't think she'd go this far," I said, gripping the phone tighter. "It's insane. She cheated, she lied, and now she's acting like I'm the one who ruined her life." "Maybe you did," Jamie said, his voice blunt, cutting through my anger. "Not with the divorce, but with those videos. You dropped a bomb, and now she's scrambling. She's desperate, Alex. And desperate people do stupid things." I stopped pacing, leaning against the counter, the edge digging into my back. He wasn't wrong. I'd seen the desperation in Lydia's posts, the way they'd shifted from cryptic to frantic, like she was grasping at straws. But I couldn't shake the anger, the betrayal, the way she'd rewritten our marriage to make me the bad guy. "She started this," I said, my voice low. "She can't just lie like that and expect me to sit back and take it." "I get it," Jamie said, softer now. "But you've got to think about yourself, too. This lawsuit, it's not just about her. It's about you. What it's doing to you. You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You're letting her live rent-free in your head, and now she's dragging you into court. You've got to decide if this is worth it." I didn't answer. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, the hum of the fridge filling the room. He was right. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating. I felt like I was walking a tightrope, one wrong step and I'd fall. But backing down felt like letting her win, letting her lies stand. I couldn't do that. Not again. That afternoon, I met Jamie at a coffee shop, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of burnt espresso hanging in the air. He sat across from me, his hands wrapped around a mug, his eyes searching mine. "You could apologize," he said, his voice careful, like he was testing the waters. "Not for the videos, but for escalating it. Maybe it'll calm her down, make her drop the lawsuit." I laughed, but it came out sharp, bitter. Apologize? To her? After everything she's done? She'd twist it, Jamie. She'd use it against me, say I admitted guilt. "You know how she is." "Maybe," he said, leaning back, his chair creaking. "But you've got to do something. This isn't sustainable." I stared at the coffee in front of me, the steam curling up, dissipating into the air. Apologize. The word stuck in my throat, sour and wrong. But then I remembered the letter, the way it had felt in my hands, the weight of it. Maybe Jamie was right. Maybe I needed to try something, anything, to stop this from spiraling further. That night, I found out it was too late. Sarah called, her voice tight, almost panicked. Alex, you need to know, she's spreading new lies. She told Mark you were abusive, that you controlled her, isolated her. She's saying that's why you sent the videos, to ruin her reputation. I froze, the phone pressed against my ear, the words sinking in like knives. Abusive. Controlled her. Isolated her. Lies, all of it. But they were dangerous lies, the kind that stuck, the kind that changed how people saw me. She's lying, I said, my voice hoarse. Sarah, you know that's not true. I know, she said, her voice softening. But Mark, he's not sure. He's been talking to her, and she's convincing. She's desperate, Alex. And she's not stopping. I hung up, my hand shaking, the room spinning. Abusive. The word echoed, sharp and ugly, like a stain I couldn't scrub out. I thought about apologizing, about backing down, but now it felt like war. She'd crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her win. The next day, I got another call from Mr. Daniels. Mr. Carter, the lawsuit is moving forward. My client is prepared to take this to court. I suggest you do the same. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The fear was still there, sharp and cold, but now it was mixed with something else, resolve. Lydia wanted to fight? Fine. I'd give her one. But as I sat there, the letter on the counter, the silence pressing in, I wondered, was I fighting for justice or just sinking deeper into the flames? The courtroom smelled like old wood and dust, the kind of place where time felt stuck, heavy with the weight of other people's fights. I sat in the back row, my hands clenched in my lap, the wooden bench hard against my spine. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting sharp shadows on the walls, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong here. But there I was, staring at Lydia across the room, her face pale and tight, her lawyer whispering in her ear. Mr. Daniels, with his slick suit and slicker smile, looked like he'd stepped out of a bad legal drama. The judge called the hearing to order, his voice gruff, echoing in the small room. I tried to focus, but my mind kept drifting, replaying the past few weeks. The cease and desist letter, Sarah's call about Lydia's new lies, Jamie's warnings. It all led here to this moment where the truth was supposed to come out. But as I sat there, the air thick with tension, I wasn't sure what truth even meant anymore. Mr. Daniels stood first, his voice smooth and confident, like he was selling a used car. Your Honor, my client, Lydia Carter, has suffered significant emotional and reputational damage due to the actions of the defendant, Alex Carter. He shared private, intimate videos without her consent, violating her privacy and defaming her character. We seek damages for the harm caused. I wanted to laugh, but it caught in my throat, sharp and bitter. Privacy. Defamation. He made it sound like I'd hacked into her life, like I'd posted the videos for the world to see. But I hadn't. They were from our shared account, legally mine as much as hers, and I'd only sent them to Sarah and Mark. I hadn't broken any laws. I knew that. But hearing him twist it, hearing him paint me as the villain, made my stomach churn. My lawyer, a quiet woman named Miss Patel, stood next, her voice steady but firm. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. The videos in question were accessed from a shared cloud account, to which Mr. Carter had legal access. Furthermore, they were not shared publicly, only with two mutual friends, in response to Ms. Carter's false claims that Mr. Carter had abandoned her without cause. This is not invasion of privacy or defamation. It's a private dispute, and Ms. Carter's claims have no legal standing. The judge nodded, his face unreadable, and I felt a flicker of hope, small but sharp, like a match in the dark. But then Lydia stood, her hands trembling, her voice high and shaky. Your Honor, he's lying. He's always lied. Those videos, they're edited, manipulated. He's trying to ruin me, to make me look bad. He's controlling, abusive. He isolated me, and now he's using this to destroy my life. The words hit me like a punch, my breath catching, my hands tightening on the bench. Abusive. Isolated. Lies, all of it. But they were dangerous lies, the kind that stuck, the kind that changed how people saw me. I wanted to shout, to tell her she was the liar, the cheat, the one who destroyed our marriage. But I didn't. I sat there, silent, my heart pounding, as the judge leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Ms. Carter, he said, his voice sharp, do you have evidence to support these claims? Edited videos? Abusive behavior? Do you have proof? Lydia froze, her mouth opening and closing, like a fish gasping for air. Mr. Daniels whispered something, but she shook him off, her voice rising, frantic. Proof? He's the proof. Look at what he's done to me. He's turned everyone against me, my friends, my family. He's ruined my life. The judge sighed, leaning back, his chair creaking. Ms. Carter, I've reviewed the evidence. The videos were legally obtained, and they were not shared publicly. Your claims of defamation and invasion of privacy do not meet the legal threshold. This case is dismissed. The gavel came down, sharp and final, like a gunshot in the quiet room. I should have felt relief, but I didn't. Lydia's face crumpled, her hands clutching the table, and then she snapped. Dismissed, she screamed, her voice echoing off the walls. You're letting him get away with this? He's a liar, a monster. He's ruined me. Mr. Daniels tried to pull her back, but she shoved him away, her eyes wild, her voice breaking. You don't understand. He's the reason I'm alone, the reason no one trusts me. He's destroyed everything. The judge called for order, but Lydia didn't stop, her words spilling out, raw and desperate. People in the gallery whispered, their eyes darting between us, and I felt the weight of their stares, heavy and accusing. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the bench, but I couldn't move. Outside, the air was cold, the wind biting at my face, but I barely felt it. Jamie was waiting by the steps, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. It's over, he said, his voice quiet. You won. Did I? I asked, my voice hoarse. She's falling apart, Jamie. And I'm the one who pushed her there. I thought this would feel different. I thought it would fix something. Jamie sighed, his breath visible in the cold. Revenge doesn't fix anything, Alex. It just burns. And now you're both ashes. I didn't answer. I thought about the videos, the way I'd sent them, the way they'd torn through her life. I'd wanted justice, but this wasn't it. This was just pain, raw and ugly, and I was part of it. That night, I deleted the videos, the sound of the trash emptying loud in the quiet apartment. It felt like letting go, but the scars were still there, sharp and deep. And as I sat there, the silence pressing in, I wondered, what did I really want? The weeks after the hearing felt different, quieter, like the world had exhaled after holding its breath too long. I started running again, something I hadn't done since before the divorce, my sneakers pounding the pavement, the early morning air sharp in my lungs. The park near my apartment was waking up. Birds chirping, the sun slicing through the trees, casting long shadows on the grass. I liked the rhythm of it, the way my breath synced with my steps, the way it felt like starting over. I deleted the videos that night after the hearing, the sound of the trash emptying still echoing in my mind, loud and final. It wasn't just about letting go of the evidence. It was about letting go of the anger, the bitterness, the weight I'd carried for months. I wasn't naive. The scars were still there, sharp and deep, like cracks in a mirror. But for the first time, I felt like I could look at them without breaking. Jamie noticed the change. We met at the bar one evening, the same one where I'd vented about Lydia all those months ago, but it felt different now. The jukebox was playing something softer, the air less heavy, and Jamie grinned when he saw me, his beer already half empty. You look good, man, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. Like you're actually sleeping for once. I laughed, the sound lighter than I expected. Yeah, well, running helps. And not having a lawsuit hanging over my head doesn't hurt. He nodded, his eyes searching mine, like he was looking for cracks. You're moving on, he said, his voice quiet but certain. Finally. Moving on. The words felt big, heavy, but they fit. I'd started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee here, a dinner there. It felt strange at first, like trying on someone else's clothes, but it was nice, too. Nice to sit across from someone new, to laugh without the weight of the past pressing in. I didn't talk about Lydia, didn't mention the videos or the lawsuit. I wanted to leave that behind, to build something new, something clean. But I couldn't ignore her completely. Not when I heard about her through the grapevine, the whispers that filtered back to me like smoke. Sarah called one afternoon, her voice hesitant, like she wasn't sure how I'd react. I saw Lydia's post, she said, her words careful. She's still talking about betrayal, about toxic exes. But it's different now. People aren't buying it. They're unfollowing her. blocking her. She's alone, Alex. I leaned against the kitchen counter, the phone pressed to my ear, the silence stretching. Alone. The word hit me harder than I expected, sharp and cold, like a splinter under my skin. I thought about Lydia, scrolling through her phone, staring at old photos, trying to piece together the life she'd lost. I hated her for what she'd done, for the lies, the betrayal, the way she tried to destroy me. But part of me, some stupid, stubborn part, still remembered the woman I'd loved, the one who danced with me in the kitchen, who laughed at my terrible jokes. That woman was gone, buried under layers of delusion, but the memory lingered, painful and raw. She's stuck, Sarah said, her voice softer now. She can't move on. And I think she knows you have. I didn't answer. I thought about the last time I'd seen her, in the courtroom, her face crumpled, her voice breaking. I thought about the lies she'd told, the way she tried to paint me as the villain. I wanted to feel anger, but I didn't. I just felt tired, like the fight had drained out of me, leaving only emptiness. That night, Mark texted, his message short but surprising. Hey, man, I owe you an apology. I believed her at first, but I was wrong. I'm sorry. I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen, and then I typed back, it's okay. We're good. It felt like closure, small but significant, like closing a door I'd left open too long. I didn't hear from Lydia directly, but I didn't need to. I saw her posts sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep, scrolling through my phone like a bad habit. They were desperate, frantic, full of vague accusations and self-pity. But Sarah was right. People weren't buying it. The comments were empty, the likes sparse, and I could tell she was losing her grip, slipping into the silence she tried to avoid. I thought about her, alone in her apartment, staring at the screen, trying to understand why no one trusted her. I wondered if she'd ever admit it, ever face the truth, that she'd cheated, lied, destroyed our marriage. I doubted it. Lydia wasn't built for accountability. She was built for delusion, for rewriting reality to fit her narrative. And now that narrative was crumbling, leaving her exposed, raw, and alone. I ran the next morning, the air crisp, the sky streaked with pink and gold. I felt lighter, like I'd shed something heavy, something I'd carried too long. Lydia was stuck, but I wasn't. I was moving forward, step by step, breath by breath. And as the sun rose, warm against my face, I knew this was my path, not hers. And I wasn't looking back. The grocery store was crowded, the kind of Saturday chaos I usually avoided, but I'd run out of coffee, and some things couldn't wait. I pushed my cart down the aisle, the wheels squeaking against the polished floor, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. It felt mundane, ordinary, but there was a comfort in that, a rhythm I'd come to appreciate. 3 years had passed since the hearing, since I'd deleted the videos, since I'd decided to move forward. 3 years, and I was different now. Lighter, somehow, like I'd shed the weight of the past, piece by piece, until all that remained was me. I'd remarried last spring, a small ceremony in the park, the sun warm against my face, the air thick with the scent of blooming flowers. Emily was different from Lydia, quiet, steady, the kind of person who listened more than she talked, who laughed at my terrible jokes without making me feel foolish. We bought a house last year, a fixer-upper with creaky floors and a leaky roof, but it felt like home, like a place we could build something new. I'd started a new job, too, managing a small tech firm, and I liked the challenge, the way it kept me busy, kept me moving. I was reaching for a bag of coffee beans, the rich, earthy smell filling the air, when I saw her. Lydia, at the end of the aisle, her cart half full, her hair shorter now, streaked with gray. She was staring at a shelf of cereal, her face blank, but there was something in her posture, something tired, worn, like she'd been carrying a weight too long. She hadn't seen me yet, and for a moment, I thought about turning away, slipping down another aisle, avoiding the collision. But I didn't. I stood there, watching her, the past rushing back, sharp and vivid, like a photograph I tried to forget. She looked up then, her eyes catching mine, and for a moment, time stopped. I saw the recognition, the flicker of shock, the way her hands tightened on the cart. I wondered what she saw in me, someone new, someone healed, someone who'd moved on. I wondered if she saw the ring on my finger, the way I stood taller now, the way I wasn't afraid to meet her gaze. She didn't say anything, didn't move, but I could feel it. The weight of everything we'd been, everything we'd lost, hanging between us like smoke. I thought about the last time I'd seen her, in the courtroom, her face crumpled, her voice breaking, screaming that I'd ruined her life. I thought about the lies she'd told, the way she'd tried to paint me as the villain, the way she'd clung to her delusions like a lifeline. I thought about the videos, the lawsuit, the fallout, the way it had torn through our lives, leaving ashes in its wake. I'd hated her then, hated her for what she'd done, for the betrayal, the pain. But now, standing there, the grocery store humming around us, I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel much of anything, just a quiet, distant sadness, like a song I'd heard too many times. She turned away first, pushing her cart down the aisle, her steps slow, deliberate, like she was trying to hold herself together. I watched her go, the distance between us growing, and I wondered what her life was like now. Sarah had told me, years ago, that Lydia was alone, that her posts had stopped, that people had moved on, leaving her behind. I wondered if she'd ever admitted it, ever faced the truth, that she'd cheated, lied, destroyed our marriage. I doubted it. Lydia wasn't built for accountability. She was built for delusion, for rewriting reality to fit her narrative. And now that narrative had crumbled, leaving her exposed, raw, and alone. I paid for my coffee, the cashier's voice cheerful, the bag crinkling in my hands, and stepped outside, the air cool against my face, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows on the parking lot. I thought about Lydia, about the way she'd looked, the way she'd turned away, and I wished her well, in my own quiet way. Not because I forgave her, I wasn't sure I ever would, but because I didn't need to carry her anymore. She wasn't my burden, wasn't my story. She was just a moment, a chapter, closed and done. I drove home, the city lights blurring past, the radio playing something soft, and I thought about Emily, waiting for me, the smell of dinner drifting from the kitchen, the sound of her laughter filling the house. I thought about the life we'd built, the future we were building, and I felt it, sharp and clear, freedom. I'd moved on, step by step, breath by breath, until the past was just a shadow, faint and fading. Lydia watched me go, I was sure of it, her eyes following me as I walked away, confident and free. But I didn't look back. I didn't need to. This was my path, not hers. And as I pulled into the driveway, the lights of home glowing warm and bright, I knew I was done. And that's it, the end of my story, or at least this chapter of it. If you've been with me through all 6 parts, through the lies, the fallout, and the long road to letting go, then thank you. It means more than you know to share this with you, to know you've listened, maybe even felt something along the way. But here's the thing. Stories like this don't end with just one voice. I want to hear yours. What did you think? Did you see yourself in me, in Lydia, in the mess we made? Did it make you think about your own past, your own paths? Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single one, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, your stories, your reflections. If you're new here, welcome. This channel is all about diving deep, telling the kind of stories that stick with you, that make you feel something real. So if you like this, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. I've got more stories in the works, more journeys to share, and I'd love for you to be part of it. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been stuck, who's been hurt, who's trying to move on, share this with them. You never know who might need it. Thanks again for listening, for being here. Remember, it's not just about the lies we tell ourselves. It's about finding the truth, step by step, breath by breath. I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you in the next story.